My name is James, and today I'm joined by this guy.
I'm Cody.
Cody, we had like a practice run.
Did we?
Last week.
We did.
And we've taken a bit of a hiatus.
Practice run for the last 3 years, let's be honest.
Oh, shit. So I think this is going to be the first official episode, as long as we have no technical difficulties tonight. So hopefully all of that works out just fine.
Perfect.
We have backups of our backups, and it should be okay. So, hello, my name is James. We've been doing a podcast, kind of hit or miss, but mostly consistently for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And we just thought it was time to kind of like just make things a little bit simpler, easier to digest. We've done multiple shows with multiple formats.
Weird. It's like we've been doing this for a long time and we can read each other's mind.
And so this is just kind of bringing it back home.
I like it.
And I thought, what better way to bring us back home than Freddy versus Jason?
What better way? It's a great point. What better way?
So one of the things that I always love talking about is the front of the box. We know what the front of this box looks like.
Yes. It's so stupid. So stupid. I know. I want to pause and say, like, I'm a product of this time.
Yes.
Like, I know that we have, if you listen to any of our old shows, I'm sure in the forthcoming shows, like, there are going to be things that we talk about, and I didn't exist in the time. I wasn't the demographic that was marketed to. I was the demographic being marketed to. Like, that was me. I was 14, 15 years old, and I thought it was stupid at the time. Just throwing that out there.
This cover is, I guess it's exactly what you expect from a cover of a movie that's literally called Freddy versus Jason. Yeah. But it still doesn't leave a lot to be desired, I guess. And that, I don't mean that in a good way.
Okay, I don't think you could say that in a good way.
And there's also a major flaw of this poster, and that is in the positioning of their faces. Freddy's glove would be on the wrong hand.
Yep. That's a great point.
And Robert Englund pointed this out, but it was far too late. They had already printed like thousands of posters. And he's like apparently the story is like, they're like, oh, hey, here's the finalized poster. He's like, oh, you fucked up.
Could you imagine, like, just simply flip the faces? But, like, no.
Just mirror it. No, it'll be fine.
Nobody asked the actor before they, like, went to print. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Well, it's the wrong hand.
Hey.
Oh, by the way, we've already printed thousands.
Y'all fucked up.
Sorry.
All right, so let's get into the back of the box here. Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees return to terrorize the teenage population. Except this time, they're out to get each other, too.
Okay.
Don't you love it? Don't you love it?
I do.
Okay, video store awards. So first off, we have director Ronnie Yu. This guy's the director of such classics as Bride of Chucky and that Fearless movie with Jet Li. It was written by Damian Shannon and Mark Swift, so we got a writing duo team here.
Okay.
These are the same guys that were behind Shark Tale.
Oh.
The Friday the 13th, 2009 reboot movie.
Okay.
Which apparently they got that job because of this movie.
This one. Okay.
And the 2017 Baywatch film.
Oh.
So these guys have a very interesting...
water theme. I found it.
Water. It's all about water.
Shark Tale. Baywatch. Jason.
Perfect.
Found it.
All right. Next up, we have Robert Englund, obviously reprising his role as Freddy Krueger. Who else could it have been in this movie? He'd played Freddy in 7 movies up to this point, and so this is the 8th film, and up until now, final film that he has played the character as well. So,
I do, and I think this film maybe exposes it. Maybe this is breaching too much. I don't know.
You're okay.
I think we could stand a reboot. I think we could stand a new Freddy.
Yeah.
And not obvious I think hopefully it's understood that there's a lot of love for the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Yep.
He's obviously a master of his craft, but there's a point where, like, I don't know, like, Tim Allen becomes too Tim Allen-y, and Tom Hanks becomes too Tom Hanksy. And I think in this case, it's too campy. Yeah. And I think we talked about this over God bless it. What's the series that Danny really likes?
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead. Like we talked about this where it's like it has become too campy and we need that reset. But I will say for all intents and purposes, like for this movie, it works.
Yeah.
I think if we want to move forward though, it's maybe time for a shift.
I think that's safe. We have Ken Kersinger as Jason Voorhees, the hulking psycho from hulking psycho from Camp Crystal Lake.
There it is.
We're going to come back to this casting decision just a little bit later. Next up, we have Monica Keena as Lori Campbell. Maybe the worst example of a slasher final girl maybe ever. She's just not super likable. She's not badass until I guess the very end, but then she's just trying too hard.
Yeah.
She's not super smart.
Nope.
She's not super endearing.
Nope.
She's just there.
She's there.
Which I guess is maybe realistic. She just happens to be the person who lives in Nancy's old house. Like, that's all it is.
That's true. Like, if you think in real life, like, you are the final girl. Like, some people don't get to choose. Like, that's... You just got to be who you are. In her defense, when she gets bad news or something scary, she goes... So that's good. Scary.
Next up, we got Jason Ritter as Will Rollins. My favorite thing that Jason Ritter's done is he did the voice of one of the main characters in that cartoon, Gravity Falls, which is basically X-Files for kids. It's a great show.
Yeah.
He definitely does a better performance on that show than in this movie. Then we finally have Kelly Rowland, and yes, it is that Kelly Rowland from Destiny's Child.
Yep.
And she appears as Kia Watterson. And one of the interesting things about Kelly Rowland and her being in this movie is that you can find interviews online, and even like going back, I mean, this is 2003, so internet is existing, but as far as like video interviews happening, but not super common, not like they are now. So even like articles, blog posts, like you can find interviews with her about this film, or even not even about this film, just about her and her career and like what she's up to. And like the interviewers and journalists a lot of times try to like razz her about being in Freddy vs. Jason.
Really?
They'll be like, oh yeah, you were in that Freddy vs. Jason movie, right? Like, oh, that's probably an experience. And she basically, like, multiple times have I seen like copy of her just telling them off. We're like, what's there to be embarrassed? What's there for me to be embarrassed about? We had a lot of fun making it, and it was a huge fucking hit, and it made a ton of money.
And I would say, like, of most of the characters, she is one of the more believable ones,
she's
right?
The
like,
best character by far.
I mean, we have. I don't even know his name. Like, old boy whose dad gets his head chopped off. Like, when we're comparing like our kind of OG5, like,
right? Yeah,
she is great.
She does great.
So,
and also she's not wrong, because Freddy vs. Jason grossed over $116 million. These are insane numbers.
That's staggering.
That is the highest grossing film of either franchise. Like, not even close.
That's crazy.
And okay, so before I go further, I want to double back to the casting of Jason in this movie.
Yeah.
So I feel that it's important to address an elephant in the room, and that is that Kane Hodder is the actor that most people associate with the role of Jason Voorhees.
Right.
He played Jason in New Blood, Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X.
Yep.
All. He was willing, and probably, I would say, expected at this point to play Jason in this film. But some hotshot somewhere at New Line Cinema decided that Jason needed to be a lot taller than Robert Englund so they could do this, like, David versus Goliath thing. And Robert Englund's not necessarily a super tall guy, but he's also not super short.
Right.
So you would need a taller than average human to dwarf him, right? So they decided that apparently Kane Hodder's just not tall enough.
Do we know how tall he is?
Hang on.
Okay. I'm sorry.
So then stunt coordinator Ken Kersinger comes in, and this guy, he's got a lot of credits as doing stunt coordination on movies. He's done many, many movies. He even was a stunt coordinator on Jason Takes Manhattan, which apparently he sometimes was doubling for Kane Hodder on that film. Oh. So it's not even the first time that he's necessarily been in Jason's boots, so to speak. But he walks in just for the stunt coordinator job, and they say, "Hey, you're tall enough. You should be Jason." And he's like, "Okay." Like, what else? What else do you do when you get offered that? Like, you don't say no. Like,
that's true.
Now, the fucked up thing, at least from what I could find, Kane Hodder's 6'3". Oh no. Fucking Ken Kersinger's 6'5". Like, 2 inches. 2 inches made our boy lose the role.
Which I will say, as a guy over 6'3", like, dude, nobody below that can understand the difference. Like, so I am about 6'4", and when I walk up to somebody who's like 6'8", like I'm dwarfed.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, you get the 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" range, like it's all about the same. My dad dwarfs me by 2 inches, and we almost look the same walking down the street.
Yeah, I think part of the reason is obviously Kane Hodder is fucking broad.
Huge.
And so I think that that might have been part of it too.
Certainly.
Of just like ratio, like, because I mean his shoulders are just massive, and Ken Kersinger in this movie as Jason not nearly as broad as what we see in like Takes Manhattan or Jason X or some of these other movies. So I think that might have played into it a little bit.
Certainly.
But I don't know, man. Like, they did so much work in this film of really trying to make it a bit of a greatest hits and a bit of a love letter. Obviously, it's a New Line movie and not a Paramount movie. So they are able to flash back to all of the Freddy movies.
Yep.
And they're not able to use any of the footage from Friday the 13th because they're all owned by Paramount.
Don't need it. I would argue. My argument. I'm not saying one's better than the other. My argument would be the average person walking into the theater is going to know Jason Voorhees. You don't need the setup, right? We've talked about this at nauseum.
Absolutely.
This director was a porn
Sean
director
Cunningham, who also was a producer on this film, and then he got sick of like it basically getting restarted so many times that he just like fucked off. He's like, whatever. I think his name still appears in the credits as a producer. He didn't do like hardly anything on this movie.
I mean, we've talked about that ad nauseum. Like that was such a cash grab. Yeah. And I feel like for the nuance, you need the Freddy story.
Sure.
So.
And so all I'm saying is that they go through so much work to really try to make it a love letter to both series that I feel like it's a little unfair to Kane Hodder for him to not be in the movie.
Absolutely.
That's really all it comes down to.
Yep.
There were a lot of issues with fire effects in this film. And there is a shit ton of fire in this movie.
So much fire. So much needless fire, so much stupid fire.
So at one point, Robert Englund has a story that, like, with the prosthetics on, he couldn't actually feel how hot things were.
Oh.
And so, like, they, at one point, especially during the end sequence with there's a lot of fire, like, they had an issue where, like, I guess the makeup was starting to bond to his skin a little bit because he didn't know just how close to the fire he was getting.
Oh, my.
Also, the stunt doubles for Monica and Jason Ritter both had melted wigs during the fire sequences. And at one point, Ken Kersinger, as Jason, caught on fire for real.
Had to have been the cornfield scene, right?
It might have been the cornfield scene.
Had to have been. There
was an effect happening, and he actually got on fire, and they had to like go out there and spray him with fire extinguisher. caught on fire in a point where he wasn't supposed to catch on fire.
That's crazy.
And that's crazy. Like, you know, luckily, it doesn't seem like anybody actually got like severely hurt or anything. Everybody seemed fine. I'm just saying, maybe y'all were pressing your luck with all the fire in the movie. Maybe back off the fire a little bit.
Too much.
Ronnie,
I think we can all agree that the Everclear on the body, creating an entire cornfield ablaze, was too much. It was too much.
Too much.
It was unnecessary. The fact that he's on fire and his blade's on fire is too much. It's not needed.
So New Line apparently spent upwards of $6 million just in development. This isn't even actually like making the movie yet.
Okay.
They had what seems to be 18 different drafts submitted by over a dozen different writers over the years of trying to get this movie made. And this was the one they settled on.
Winner, chicken dinner.
I guess. And the advertising budget for this movie was more than every Friday the 13th movie combined.
Wow.
The marketing budgets were. And so it came in a grand total budget of everything at the end of the day at $30 million. Obviously, we already said it made $116 million, so it did pretty damn good.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, for a movie that has 41% on Rotten Tomatoes, 37% on Metacritic, this was a very important movie in 2003. A just extremely important tentpole release movie.
Yeah, those statistics don't help what I'm about to say, but sure. Yeah, let's go with it.
So
Makes sense.
I have my featuring rundown and I'm ready to go with it. But before I do that, I have one major detraction. Well, maybe two. You can talk about this movie because the age that it came out, 2003.
Yep.
Those early 2000s is a rough era for films, especially horror films. We're at the cusp of CGI kind of taking off, so this movie has a lot of bad CGI, as do a lot of films of that era. Yep. So I don't want to judge it too hard because of the era that it's in. But another thing that I do want to judge it hard for are what I'm calling plot naps, which sleeping is an extremely important part to the plot of any Freddy Krueger media, yes, but they seem overly convenient in this movie just to help move the plot along and just to give Robert Englund screen time is almost what it feels like.
Yep.
It's just an excuse to get him on screen.
Yep. And I would say, like, it's, like you said, like, it's an important facet, but, like, the fact that it has to be this, like, duping surprise every time, which by, like, the second one, you're like, oh, I'm expecting this. And we don't ever have that true I'm falling asleep shot. I never really thought of it in the terms like we were watching it. And you were like, oh, I would like is this a Jason versus a Freddy thing? And they make it pretty clear from the onset. Like, Jason's going to be this just giant with a baseball bat. He's going to be super obvious. It's not going to be a surprise. It's not going to be this trickery, which I would say is probably, if I had to pick one or the other, that's his franchise. Though there are times where we have surprises. There are times when we have scares. And then Freddy is probably the more finesse character. But, like, it's stupid. It's
just so obvious every time, but I feel like they're trying to trick me, and it's like, you're not tricking me.
Well, and I would say, like, I haven't seen this film since it came out in theaters.
Yeah.
Like, you said 2013, so I would have been 13 years old. Like, I haven't seen this movie in almost 10 years.
Right.
And, like, as soon as it happened, the first time that we were watching it tonight, I was like, oh, I remember my big qualm with this movie. It's like the idea of, like, every person, they try to do this thing where, like, no, they're really awake and they're not. And it drives me nuts. Like, this idea where they never actually fool me. After the first one proves itself as a dream, they never fool you.
Right.
And some are more overt than others, but it's stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid.
All right, let's get into it here. So this movie features Robert Englund's fantastic opening monologue, Freddy's teeth, which I feel like they just went a little bit overboard with on this movie. I don't remember Freddy's teeth ever looking quite that
demonic,
razory and just bad. So there's that. Eyeless children, nose ripping, Laurie's creepy doctor dad, a bathtub of blood, bad CGI, horrible nu metal soundtrack, again a product of its time, but really takes you out of the film.
Yes.
Then we have kid slashing, body folding, beheading, machete slashing, human shish kebabbing ×2, neck snapping, machete throwing, teenage rave massacring, back burning and face slashing, door bashing, stoner splitting, nerd impaling, and tree thumping. Bringing us to a grand total of 20 kills and 2 thumbs up.
I'm shocked. I feel like and this may be all I say about this, is there are times when we've looked at eras and we've looked at movies and we're like, that wasn't my dig, but we know about the era.
Yeah.
And we have to go with it. And I can't tell you, like, this is the equivalent. I can't tell you the importance of this movie coming out in 13.
Yeah.
Like, I would say that both
2003.
I would say both franchises had lost their luster with
gone.
Like, I would say you were a product of an earlier time. Like how
I was an anomaly.
Yeah, like how you were exposed to the Freddy series so early.
Yeah.
I was a Halloween kid, and like I felt like both of these franchises were older.
Which Halloween ended up getting more legs because of H2O.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like this idea where like they had been outdated, this came out and it was like, I'll never forget, man. Like, so like me and a couple of my friends, we were big into horror movies, but like this was like high school pervasive. Like everybody was going to see this film. This was like, oh gosh. And like, I hate to put this in rare company because like, you go to these like once in a generation films where like everybody, Paranormal Activity is a perfect example because there's a lot of love and hate for that film. Like this one it's along those lines where like everybody went to see this film. And for as much as I may like look back on it and think like, wow, it really didn't do either franchise a service, like maybe even more of a disservice. You can't argue the fact that it brought love back to those. Like, I had a lot of friends go back through both series. Friends who would have never been into the horror realm, went back into those franchises. So
it's not. I don't think it's a coincidence that both of these franchises got remake, reboot titles pretty much immediately after this.
And it is for better and worse. It is a product of 2003. Like, if you want to know what filmmaking was like, just enough practicals to get you here, just enough CGI to get you here. CGI is rough.
Yeah.
It's way too creative. Like, script in burn on somebody's back of fire damage. Like, yikes. Even decision making, like the final death where the hand comes through the chest. It was all CGI. The fact that it wasn't like, even if you jump around to the fact of like, if we were talking about Gen Z, wait, we are millennial, Gen Z.
We're wires.
If it was Gen Z, like he would have beat him with the hand, right? Like, for us, it probably would have been like Jason's hand through Freddy, right? But like the fact that it was CGI, Freddy's own hand through himself. Like, I don't know. It just feels like a product of its time.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. And I feel like I can't watch this movie. For all the negative reaction I have in this, I can't help but think very positively towards it. Even after tonight. Hadn't seen it in 10 years. Watched it tonight. Had all my old issues. Had all my new issues. But thumbs up. You got to watch it. If you're a fan of either one or you want to be into horror at all, like, this brings roads together.
Yeah, it really I felt like an old man watching this movie again tonight, and it was just that feeling of like, I know there are parts of this that do suck.
Yep.
But I'm still having fun with it, and I can see past the parts that suck. Whereas when I watched it when I was 13, I probably couldn't see past the parts that sucked.
Yep.
You know? Now I've matured a little bit, and I can almost look back on that suckiness with some fondness.
We're defending this movie with our maturity. That's great. It works well. It works well.
One of the most immature movies I've ever seen in my life.
But I agree. Like when you hit something nostalgic, and maybe we're the product of the time, and that's fine. Like, because you know what, there's a shit ton of Star Wars fans. There's a shit ton of Star Trek fans who make the same argument. So like, why can't we in our genre, right? I mean, like, sure. So
you know what I would like to do? I would like to double feature this at a drive-in with Bride of Chucky and just do Ronnie Yu all night long.
I don't know that I could.
I would want to do it. I would get really, really drunk, but I would like to do it.
Okay, I'd be down. I'd always be down. But
We'll do it in the backyard.
What's funny is like, as soon as this movie popped up, I was like, oh, Ronnie Yu. Like, I know that name. I haven't seen this movie in 10 years. I probably haven't seen Bride of Chucky in 10 years. But like, it was like, I know that name. Far before I cared about directors' names, like, I was like, oh no, I know this name. Sure, why not? Yeah. Why not?
All right. Well, hey guys, that about wraps it up for us here at Nite Shift Video. Again, this has been Nightmare Theater, where me and a guest will talk about a scary movie. We're going to be trying to do some ones that you guys have heard of and know. I've noticed that doing the hits seems to get more attention than doing like new movies. And I think that's also because there's not any new hits coming out because we're still at the tail end of the old panini here. And, you know, not a lot of movies getting made still.
Nobody likes the tail end of the panini. Don't like the fact that I agree with that, but you're right.
All right, so thank you guys so much for tuning in, listening, watching, whatever you're doing. You can stay up to date with us on all the socials at Nite Shift Video. That's Nite spelled N-I-T-E, not with the G-H. We don't do that kind of stuff around here. We do it the old-timey way, just like Freddy versus Jason. For Nite Shift Video, I have been James, and this guy is...
I'm Cody.
Deuces.